The observation deck of the Talon's Pride hummed with the low thrum of fusion drives as Mira pressed her forehead against the cool viewport. Beyond the reinforced glass, the debris field of Sector 7 stretched like a graveyard of stars, twisted metal and frozen bodies, remnants of the war that had consumed 3 systems. She was tired, bone-tired. The kind of exhaustion that came from being the only human among 200 Vacrian cadets, each one bred for combat, their predatory instincts honed across millennia of evolution. Mira's stomach growled. She ignored it. The cafeteria incident had happened 3 hours ago, and the memory still burned. She'd been carrying her tray, standard rations, nothing special, when Instructor Thale had barked an order across the mess hall. Mira had snapped to attention so fast that the tray had slipped from her fingers, clattering to the floor in a spectacular cascade of protein paste and nutrient blocks. The laughter had been immediate. Not cruel exactly, but loud, deafening. 200 young Vacrians, their scaled faces split with fanged grins, their yellow eyes gleaming with amusement at the clumsy alien in their midst. Mira had cleaned it up without a word. She'd gone to request a replacement meal, but the quartermaster had shaken his head. 1 ration per cycle, cadet. You know the rules, she knew, so she'd returned to her bunk hungry, telling herself it was just 1 meal. She'd survived worse during basic training on Earth. What she hadn't expected was the knock on her door an hour later. Kor stood in the corridor, his juvenile scales still showing patches of softer blue beneath the hardening gray. He was small for a Vacrian, barely taller than Mira, and his eyes held none of the confident, predatory gleam of his peers. Instead, there was something else there, something uncertain. Cadet Mira, he said, his translator implant rendering his clicks and growls into flat standard. I brought something. He held out a container. Inside were half of his evening rations, protein strips, a nutrient block cut cleanly in 2, even a portion of the sweet paste that the Vacrians treasured. Mira stared at it. Kor, you need that. The training tomorrow. You need it more, he interrupted, his clawed hand still extended. I saw in the cafeteria, you defended me last week. When Grath and his pack cornered me in the training bay, you stepped between us, Mira remembered. Grath was twice her size, and the confrontation could have ended badly. But she'd stood her ground, citing regulation, threatening to report the harassment. The Vacrians respected strength and adherence to code. She'd used both. That was different, Mira said quietly. That was the right thing to do. Kor's head tilted, a gesture of confusion. And this is not? Before Mira could respond, more footsteps echoed in the corridor. She looked up to see a line forming outside her quarters. 3 more cadets, then 5, then a dozen. Each one carried a portion of their rations. We saw what Kor was doing, said Vesa, a female cadet with scars across her snout from a training accident. It reminded us. You fixed my pressure suit last month when the seals failed. Didn't report it as my error. Could have cost you merits. Another stepped forward. You taught me how to recalibrate the weapons. Array when I couldn't understand the manual. You stayed up all night helping me with tactical theory before the exam. You covered my watch rotation when I had scale rot. 1 by 1 they came, each with their offering, each with their memory of the strange, soft-skinned human who'd shown them kindness when she had no obligation to do so. Mira felt something hot and tight in her chest. She tried to speak, but her voice caught. The Vacrians didn't operate on sentiment. Their culture was built on pack bonds forged through combat, on hierarchy established through strength. They were taught that weakness was death, that resources were earned, not given. But here they stood, these young warriors in training, offering half their food to someone who'd simply treated them with dignity. This is not how Vacrians behave, Mira finally managed, her voice rough. Kor's scales rippled, a shrug, perhaps. But you showed us that strength isn't only in claws and teeth. You're small, human, fragile. Your species has no natural weapons, no armor. Yet you stood before Grath when he threatened me. You risk yourself in training exercises meant for creatures twice your mass. You never yield. He pressed the container into her hands. If that is what humans are, then maybe we have something to learn about strength. Instructor Thale appeared at the end of the corridor, his massive frame blocking the light. The cadet stiffened to attention. The old warrior's gaze swept across the scene, the line of young Vacrians, the portions of food, the human cadet with tears streaming down her face. For a long moment, he said nothing, Then his mandibles clicked in what might have been approval. The pack protects its own, he rumbled, even when the pack includes unusual members. Carry on, cadets. He turned away, then paused. Cadet Mira, tomorrow's simulation. You'll lead the squad. As he left, the cadets dispersed, each one nodding to Mira before returning to their quarters. Kor lingered last. Thank you, Mira whispered. Kor's eyes gleamed. We are the ones who should thank you. You taught us that honor isn't only about the hunt. It's about remembering who stood beside you when you were prey. Alone again, Mira looked down at the collection of food containers crowding her small desk, enough to feed her 3 times over. She smiled through her tears and began to eat. Tomorrow she would lead them. And they would follow, not because she was the strongest, not because she was the fastest, but because she'd shown them what humanity meant, and they'd answered with the best of themselves.